Hello, welcome to an October wrap-up. I mentioned in my November TBR that I am absolutely astounded that we are in November now. Blows my mind that 2024 is nearly over. I don't even want to think about it for too long. But we're here to do an October wrap-up. What did I read in October? How much did I read in October? I have... how many entries in my core pile sheet for October? 3. That's not right. 17. 17 books that are listed in my core pile for October. However, there were some DNFs in there, so we'll talk through all of them. The first one on my list is The Daughter of Dr Moro by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This was the first book that I picked up in October and very sadly was a DNF for me. So we're not going to talk about it for too long, but I expected something a little bit creepier from that, a little bit more atmospheric, and it focused way too much for me on just general life, like the life of, was her name Carlotta? Maybe, and her father's want for her to get a husband because he's running out of money and so on. And I didn't get enough of the actual, like, creepiness of the creatures of Dr. Moreau, like his experiments and so on. I just didn't get the atmosphere from it that I wanted, so was quite disappointed by that one. Did DNF it, and it was also on my self-destruct TBR, so that's that one. Gone. Moving on. So moving on to something a little bit more successful, I then read Skandar and the Chaos Trials by A.F. Steadman. This is the third book in the Skandar series. This is a middle grade series about a young boy called Skandar. The first one is Skandar and the Unicorn Thief. And in this world there is an island where there are unicorns, but these unicorns are not what you would typically expect, like magical, cute. Well, they are magical, but they're not cute. They're not your typical unicorn. They are, like, made of rotten flesh. They are vicious. They are, I don't want to say evil, but more so what you would associate with evil, because those unicorns are unbonded. But when the right unicorn rider bonds with a unicorn, they become a bit more less dead. But they are still vicious, but not with their, like, bonded person. I did a really bad job of explaining that. Anyway, in the first one, there's a unicorn thief, and Skandar has always wanted to be a unicorn rider. Spoiler alert, as the rest of the series involves Skandar riding unicorns. You see what happens there. But this middle grade series is one that I actually really enjoy, and middle grade has not been bringing me the same joy that it once did, but I do think with this series, it's one of those series that kind of goes beyond its age range. Like, if you like middle grade, you will like this. If middle grade isn't necessarily for you, I still think there is something in Skandar that any age range can read. Similarly to how people feel about Nevermore, I use this comparison quite often, how Nevermore kind of transcends the age range that it's targeted towards, and anyone and everyone can enjoy it. I feel like Skandar has that similar feeling. Could also go down the route of comparing to Percy Jackson. In fact, Percy Jackson's probably a better comparison because Percy and Skandar kind of have a similar vibe to them. But I never finished the Percy Jackson series. That's not what I'm here to talk about though. This, I really enjoyed. It got 4 stars. I do have the 4th book over on my shelf. I am excited to continue this and see where we go at the end of this, because something has happened with a particular character, and I am very curious to know how that's gonna play out. Backs are being stabbed. Anyway. After that, we went on a total tone change, and I picked up The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. This is the scariest thing I think I've ever read. I have been dabbling in horror. If you've been keeping up with my content at all recently, you will know that I've been dabbling in horror. I've been finding my feet, finding what I like, finding what I don't like. And T. Kingfisher seems to, for the most part, be something that I have been enjoying. And this one is definitely the creepiest of her works that I have read so far. This one follows a woman called Kara. Kara's going through a divorce. Kara is moving in with her uncle, who runs a museum of curiosities. And when she is minding the museum for her uncle, she stumbles upon a hole in a wall behind a display. And what is behind that wall is terrifying, which includes the words, "Pray that they are hungry," scrawled on the wall. In this hole, which should not go anywhere, because it's in a museum, like, it should go where you would logically think a hole in a wall would go, but it doesn't. It goes to, like, this portal universe, like an in-between sort of place, filled with willow trees and a river, and many, many bunkers that have portals to other worlds, and nothing makes sense, and everything is terrifying, and the willows will get you. Creepy. Definitely put me on edge. Kind of gave me that feeling of, I don't want to turn the page because I don't want to know what's behind that door. But also, I really do, so I'm gonna sneak a peek at what's behind that door. Scariest thing I've ever read. And I don't read a lot of scary things, so maybe it's not that scary. But to me, it was just the right vibe. And I think this is helping me to establish my horror taste, which we will get more into as this video goes on. Next up, I read my favourite book of the month. Spoiler alert, this is my only 5-star read of October. I'm so glad that I finally read it. It was on my priority list and I had been putting it off because I was scared of it. I was intimidated by it massively, but I'm so glad to have read Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. This was brilliant. You know when something is so good and so fantastic and you had a great time with it, and then you just think, like, how do I encompass everything in this in less words? Because you have to read it. Like, there's betrayals, there's people on all sorts of sides of this war that's going on here, but broad overview. The Devas are real. Our prologue is like thousands of years in the past. The Devas are real. There was a war that the humans were involved in. Click into present day. Our main character, Krishna, and his wife are at the heart of a rebellion. They have their little republic, their city. They don't want to be under the Emperor's rule, so they are fighting a war against the Emperor to protect their republic. Then we also have the perspective of those in the republic and the alliances that they make and the political marriages that they are encouraging. And we have a princess who should really settle down but doesn't want to because she likes to settle her scores with murder and betrayal. So she's up to no good. We then have another political party. Are they an empire in their own right or a kingdom? There is very handily a list of all of the people. There's the Republic, so it's the Union. The Union is what they are. The Union are trying to form their own alliances and marry in politically. We then have the Kingdom of Panchal, where all of our characters are trying to get to an event there, which is to win the princess's hand in marriage, because that is a very strong alliance that is currently, like, up for grabs. We then have all of the players from all of these different teams, almost, and they are all playing a game without acknowledging that they are not the only players in the game, and there will be betrayal, and eventually a greater power will become part of this game. And at the same time as we've got all of those political goings-on that I absolutely love sinking my teeth into, we also have the perspective of the people from the Citadel, the oracles, you'd think I'd never read this book before. Matrons. I wanted to call her a mother. She's not a mother, she's a matron. Hey, Finn. The matrons and the oracles, and they kind of interject in the story with their prophecies. You can see, like, the darker pages in this every now and then, which is where we flip to their perspective as they're working out what's happening in this story and who is who from the prophecy. Hello, Finn. Who is who from the prophecy at the very beginning of the book, and what that means for the land as a whole, and who is going to be the son of darkness, and how everything's going to play out in their future. There's just so much... Finn? Really? There's so much to this, and I loved every second of it. Bear with me. Okay, I was gonna try and get rid of Finn, but he's just curled up on me. He won't. I kind of put him down and laid a blanket out for him, and he's just jumped straight back up here, so we've just got a Finn on our lap now. But the next thing that I read, this is where I got into my Which Witch Wins video, which I will leave linked somewhere. We've got a trio of witchy books coming up. The first of those being The Honey Witch by Sydney Shields. This one was one that came in a Fairy Loot adult box, and I was very worried was going to be a little bit too romantic-y for me, so I went into this with fairly low expectations, but ended up being pleasantly surprised and quite enjoyed this in the end. This one follows, I've forgotten her name entirely, Marigold, who has never really quite fit into high society like her mother and brother and sister. She's the oldest of her siblings, but she's never quite belonged. She's never been able to find a husband. It's not the life that she wants. She wants to follow the footsteps of her grandmother. However, her relationship with her grandmother kind of fell apart many years ago. Her family don't talk to her grandmother all that much until her grandmother comes along and pretty much says to Marigold, "You are the next Honey Witch. Should you wish to accept this responsibility, you can come back with me to the beautiful land of Innisfree and become a honey witch. I'll teach you everything that I know." And she takes it. But there is a curse that comes with being a honey witch, which is that you will never find your true love. You will never fall in love. No one can love you. That is not meant to be. But of course, there would be no story if that does not happen. So there is a love interest. And in order to protect her love interest, she has to fight for everything that she's worked so hard to get at this point in her life. Blah, blah, blah. There were some frustrations that I had with this. Our main character is pretty blind to one big point that to me is quite obvious as a reader, and our main character's blindness to it was a little bit irritating. But for the most part, I ended up having quite a good time with this one. So, another 4-star. Did I give it 4-star? I did give it 4-star. 4 stars for this. Hurrah! Following on from that, I picked up The House Witch. I will only touch on this very briefly because, again, it was a DNF for me. I was enjoying the tone. I thought that this one could be quite good. It's about a house witch who works in a royal kitchen. However, I was not prepared for the random domestic violence flashbacks. There was no trigger warning for domestic violence, and that is my only trigger that I can't handle in books. So sadly had to DNF that one. Are you leaving? No, you are not. Are you? He can't make his mind up. He might jump down any second now. Perhaps. We'll see. And then the last book that I read for the trio of witches was The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin, and this one also was on my self-destruct TBR, so I made some good progress on that. And this one was very forgettable, I feel. It was a quick read, but for the most part I can't remember anything about this. Like, it was okay whilst I was reading it. It felt fine. I wouldn't say I liked it. I wouldn't say I disliked it. It was just okay, and now I can't remember a great deal about it at all. Our main character is an Everwitch. That's it. She's an Everwitch. So witchery in this world is split into seasons. You've got the spring, summer, fall, and winter witches, and their magic is tied to their season. An Everwitch is tied to all seasons. Her magic changes with the seasons. She always has her magic, and magic is very closely tied to the environment and global warming, and this is about how the Everwitch can help with some of the, disasters of the world, because she has magic in all seasons and can help with other magic. But She doesn't want to be an Everwitch. It is a big sacrifice to her. Her magic is very, very powerful, and she feels it is a danger to her and those around her. So it's her kind of development with that. But very okay, forgettable to me. After that, I did my tiny horror vlog, so I'll leave that linked somewhere as well. If you've seen that, you know what's coming up. The first book I read for that was Sour Candy, which is a tiny horror, of course, about a man who goes to the store, stumbles upon a screaming child, and the next thing you know, that screaming child is his. His whole life has been rewritten. He now has a son that forces him to eat nothing but sour candy to the point where his teeth fall out and his life is a mess. But where did this kid come from? Why did he choose him? What on earth, or not on earth, is going on? How has this happened? Good question. I think he wanted to know that too. This was creepy. The kid was creepy, but what the kid was connected to was also creepy. It's so tiny that I don't want to say too much because it would just be a spoiler. Like, it's like an 80-page book or something, but what that kid is tied to is creepy. It's kind of a cosmic horror. Like, the answer is very ambiguous, out of this world. There's nothing, like, concrete or solid about the ending to it. It is very, like, what? Which is what I really like. I'm learning. That's what I really like not knowing the answer to everything and kind of having this ambiguous, otherworldly, cosmic non-answer. So I ended up quite enjoying that one, and that one got 4 stars from me. Following on from that, I tried my first ever Stephen King book, which was 1922, which is a short story about a man and his son who kill their wife/mother and bury her in a well on their farm and then get creeped out because there are rats. It was really boring. I didn't finish it. I couldn't finish it. I got over halfway. I think I got like 60% in. I was so bored. And I think that has helped me realise that I don't know what genre of horror this would be, but like, bog standard murder? Not for me. I just found it very boring. Like, he was plotting the murder of his wife. He murdered his wife, threw her body in a well, and was then creeped out when rats started eating her dead body. And then whenever he saw a rat, he thought he was being haunted by rats. Like, nothing about that is creepy. Like, that, what did you expect? I just didn't get it. Which, yeah, leads me to believe that mundane horror, where it's just a murder, isn't for me. I need something otherworldly, something a bit more fantastical to get me going. And that wasn't it, so DNF for that one. I then moved on to Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio. I have not read from M.L. Rio before. I know that If We Were Villains is like everyone and their mother's favourite dark academia. Never read it. Don't particularly like dark academia. It's not really been something I've fallen into, which is why I think this one possibly didn't land for me. Also, I think I fell for the marketing tactics on this one. It was sold to me in a display along with other dark, creepy books. So when I was looking for tiny horrors and looking for like those creepy atmospheric reads, and this was on the display, and I knew there was a lot of hype for M.L. Rio anyway, I was like, oh yeah, give it a go. It kind of missed that mark for me. The atmosphere wasn't what I wanted it to be. Again, because it's so little, I can't say much without spoiling things, so I'm just going to refer to the thing, which is The Thing. We kind of hear about The Thing as the characters look into The Thing, but we never experience The Thing. Like, we never firsthand see it or witness it, and it's kind of got that like academic tone to it. This one is about a group of people that either work or study at university, and they all meet in a graveyard to smoke at midnight, and when they get there, there's an empty grave. like a freshly dug, empty grave, and it is the mystery of that midnight working out how this empty grave got there, what it's for, what's the story for this empty grave. So there's a lot of like them working it out and working out what the thing is. But yeah, because we don't experience it, we don't feel it, it didn't give me anything. So this one kind of was a bit flat for me. I think I did give it 3 stars. I did. I have given it 3 stars. Like, the writing was nice, it was fine, I just didn't feel anything, which is a shame. And then we ended out our tiny horrors with The Salt Grows Heavy, which I did actually very much enjoy. This one got a 4-star from me again. This was creepy, this gave me the right atmosphere. This is the sort of book that I feel like would be very good on reread, because when you're reading it the first time, you don't really know what's going on, and then you do. So I feel like on reread, it would probably be quite good. But this one follows a mermaid and a plague doctor. Our mermaid married a king, but she's not a mermaid in, again, that like typical sense of pretty woman with fishtail. She is a vicious creature, a vicious murdering creature, but she was married to a king and kind of had her nature stripped from her until it's back. And she is travelling with a plague doctor. The place where they are from has just been absolutely destroyed. There is dead bodies everywhere. Fleeing the downfall of an empire, a mermaid and her plague doctor companion escape into the eerie shadows of the wintry forest. So it doesn't actually tell us what happened there. But they are escaping the downfall of this kingdom. There are dead bodies and destruction everywhere. And they stumble upon some kids playing a game? Maybe not playing a game? One of them is the pig, and the other kids are hunting this child down and like hunting him properly, murdering him, and the plague doctor is very distraught by this and accuses these children of murder, and they say, no, don't be silly, come back with us, the saints will fix him, they will put him back together, he will be absolutely fine, this is just a game that we play, come back with us, you will see. And they go back with the child to find out what that happening was. But the whole point of this one is myths are lies. What's the tagline? Myths are full of lies. This is not one of them. So with our mermaid, it's like you hear the myths and the tales of mermaids, but they are all lies. That is not the truth of it. And there is the story of the saints and the story that they've kind of built around themselves, which is full of lies. Here is the truth to it. I really liked it. Very atmospheric, creepy, bloody, gutsy. I liked it a lot. And then the last few books I read I'm going to treat as one and just say the whole Dreadwood series. I did a vlog reading the whole Dreadwood series. This is a middle grade horror series, so again I wasn't too sure how I was going to feel about this because middle grade doesn't always bring me the same joy that it once did, but I think that with middle grade horror it does, because I very much enjoyed most of these. Some definitely more than others. I feel like it had a very strong start and a very strong end and kind of dipped a little bit in the middle. But these are like creature-y horror. Like we have giant man-eating spiders, mind-controlling parasitic worms, vampire birds that suck a body dry, poisonous rats, again, blood-sucking butterflies, and I wasn't too sold on the giant octopus. It didn't feel like in the right vein. Like we had smaller creatures and then a giant octopus. I didn't quite get that one. But genetically modified creatures causing horrors for this particular group of children, and a steady villain that consistently comes back to get them, as is typical of middle grade. We have kind of an expectation of the villain in that regard. But I very much enjoyed my time with these, and there is a particular something that happened in here that did make me feel physically unwell. But you can go and watch the vlog all about these if you want the ins and outs of details on each one, because it was kind of like a mini review as I went through them. So feel free to go and check that out if you are interested in creepy middle grade horror. I will say, if you are like arachnophobic or have a phobia of creatures, maybe not for you. But I had a good time. And there we go. That is everything that I read in October. I think it was a pretty good reading month. Obviously it was never going to be as strong as September was, because September was off the scale, but I still think I had a pretty solid October, and I am happy with where I'm at. And I am looking forward to diving into November's reads and hopefully keeping the pace going, but November is a very busy month for me, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, that is it for this video. I will leave us there. Let me know what your best read of October was down below. I'm curious to find out. But otherwise, thanks for hanging out with me for a bit whilst I ramble on about this lot, and I shall see you in whatever comes next. Bye!